Thank you. It's great to be with you this afternoon. I particularly want to honor my former employer, SAIC. I'm not gone from the company 2.5 years, and already Frank Wolf's sitting at the table. But at any rate, I've represented SAIC on the board of the Chamber Board in Fairfax for 7 years, so intimately familiar with Chamber issues and procedures. I understand that Eric Cantor could not join us, though he was scheduled. I know that if he were here, he'd want me to tell you that we can and must work things out in a bipartisan way, that the Obama jobs bill has a lot of merit to it, that continuing a resolution we lost last night on the floor will be brought up again and passed so that the government will avert shutdown, and that we can all hold hands and sing Kumbaya. Of course, I wish sometimes some of that would be true. But you know, a happy story about Virginia, it was true. All of us worked together, all 11 members of the congressional delegation, both senators and the governor and his team, when Virginia's economy was threatened by proposed actions by the Pentagon last year. When Secretary Gates announced two things. He was going to close JEFCOM, and he was going to retract defense outsourcing by 30%, 10% a year. Now, that would have been a direct stake at the heart of the economy of Virginia. And we rallied together as one. We had one message. We reinforced each other. Each of us used our respective resources and networks to try to make sure this did not happen. And by and large, we were successful on behalf of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Although JEFCOM was formally closed, many of its operations stayed in Virginia, and some expansion of other operations occurred to try to help compensate for the loss. And on the contracting side, instead of a $14 billion hit in outsourced contracting, we were able to limit the universe to $400 million. And so, we got Secretary Gates and others to listen carefully. The reason we had that success on behalf of the Commonwealth of Virginia was because we acted as one. We put aside partisan differences for a common good. And we implicitly recognized in doing that all of us had an obligation to the whole Commonwealth, even beyond our district boundaries. And I think that's a model for us here in the Congress nationally. It may be harder to achieve, but that ethos is something we ought to strive for. I would hope that the business community would try to help reinforce that message. Respect for our differences, respect for the individuals who hold those differences, but positive pressure to try to nonetheless come together. You know, sometimes in our polity we hear that compromise is a dirty, tainted, bad thing. And yet this republic was founded on compromise. The fact that you're in the other body was the result of the first great compromise of the Republic. In the Constitutional Convention, they compromised and created a bicameral legislation, 2 houses, because the smaller states were worried about their representation. Thus was born the U.S. Senate. Everyone had equal representation. And the Republic's been in dicey shape ever since. No, but, and the second great compromise involved the debt. Alexander Hamilton felt, the first Secretary of Treasury, that it was absolutely important and the proper role for the new federal government to undertake debt from the Revolutionary War. It wasn't fair, and it wasn't even smart economics, that the states would continue to bear that burden alone. So he proposed that the federal government take that burden from them. Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, 2 of Virginia's own, said no going. We're not going to do that. It's not in the Constitution. It's not a proper role for the federal government. Why would we want to burden the new republic with debt? And the states will just have to sort of fend for themselves. Alexander Hamilton made the argument economically, it would actually be a good thing for the federal government. We'll establish this new republic's creditworthiness from day one. They had a private dinner. Now, Alexander Hamilton wanted the debt agreement. Thomas Jefferson wanted something too. He wanted the capital here, not in Philadelphia. Out of that dinner grew the Second Great Compromise. Hamilton got his debt, and by the way, the United States got its creditworthiness, and Thomas Jefferson got his capital. So compromise is not always a bad thing. In fact, more often than not, it's actually how we function. It's a good thing. And we need a lot more of it right now in the halls of this Congress, and a willingness to do what we were able to do as one Virginia delegation a little earlier this year in protecting the economy of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Thank you so much for having me here today. God bless you all.